Chapter 2: Reshaping India's Political Map. Learning Objectives. Define India's medieval period. Identify regional resistance movements. Trace Delhi Sultanate's origins. Analyze administrative systems. Explore Vijayanagar Empire's rise. Describe medieval daily life. Follow Mughal Empire's journey. Between the 11th and 17th centuries, the Indian subcontinent underwent remarkable political, social, and cultural changes. This era, often called the medieval period, was marked by the rise and fall of powerful dynasties, the influx of Central Asian invaders, and the emergence of large empires like the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals. While political dominance shifted frequently, these centuries also witnessed the growth of trade, the spread of new ideas, and the flowering of regional cultures. The period began with multiple independent kingdoms across the Indian landscape, but waves of invasions and internal transformations led to more centralized and militarized empires. The interactions between foreign rulers and indigenous powers reshaped India's map, introduced new administrative and taxation systems, and triggered resistance movements that preserved regional identities. In this chapter, we explore these transitions to understand how medieval India laid the groundwork for future nation building. India in the 11th century. The 11th century in India was marked by the presence of many powerful regional kingdoms before the emergence of the Delhi Sultanate. In the northwest, the Ghaznavid ruler Mahmud of Ghazni, of Turkic origin, led numerous raids into the Indian subcontinent, targeting rich temple towns and cities. His most notable raid was on the Somnath Temple in 1025 CE, which had significant political and cultural repercussions. These repeated incursions by Ghazni and other Turkic Afghan forces gradually exposed northern India to the idea of sustained foreign rule. Meanwhile, the Indian heartland was ruled by various powerful Rajput clans such as the Chauhans, Paramaras, and Chandelas. They were known for their military valor and for building magnificent temples, stepwells, and forts that showcased their wealth and devotion. In the south, the Chola Empire was at its zenith under kings like Rajaraja Chola and Rajendra Chola. Their rule extended over much of South India and even reached parts of Southeast Asia. The Cholas maintained a well-organized administrative system and a powerful navy that supported trade and expansion. Their governance model allowed village assemblies to play a central role in decision-making. This period set the stage for a dramatic transformation of the Indian political landscape. The increasing pressure from Turkic and Afghan invasions from Central Asia, combined with internal rivalries among Indian rulers, paved the way for the establishment of larger centralized empires in the centuries that followed. One of the most prominent of these was the Delhi Sultanate, which would dominate northern India for the next 3 centuries. Delhi Sultanate and regional resistance, 13th-15th centuries. Beginning in the 13th century, the Indian subcontinent underwent a major political shift with the rise of the Delhi Sultanate. This transformation was initiated by successive invasions from Central Asia, particularly by Turkic and Afghan warriors, seeking not only riches but also long-term political control and religious expansion. The turning point came in 1192 CE when Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in the Second Battle of Tarain. His trusted general Qutbuddin Aibak laid the foundations of Muslim rule in India and later established the Mamluk slave dynasty, the first ruling house of the Delhi Sultanate. This period, from the 13th to 15th centuries, was marked by the reign of 5 major dynasties. The Mamluks, also known as the slave dynasty, Khiljis, Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, Sayyid dynasty, and Lodis, Lodi dynasty, each contributed to the Sultanate's growth through military conquests, administrative innovations, and architectural achievements such as the Qutub Minar and Alai Darwaza. Despite their dominance in northern India, the Delhi Sultans struggled to establish lasting control over distant regions. Resistance was widespread, especially from well-established regional kingdoms like the Eastern Gangas of Odisha, who built the Konark Sun Temple under Narasimhadeva, the Kakatiyas of Warangal, the Hoysalas of Karnataka, and the Rajput states of Mewar and Marwar. These kingdoms defended their autonomy, promoted regional languages and cultures, and contributed significantly to Indian art and architecture. The Delhi Sultanate thus shaped India's medieval era not only through centralized governance and military strength, but also by prompting fierce regional assertions that preserved India's cultural and political diversity. Key rulers and developments. The Delhi Sultanate witnessed rapid political shifts and a diversity of rulers who influenced India's medieval landscape in various ways. Below are some of the most notable sultans and their contributions. The Mamluk slave dynasty 1206 1290 CE. Before the rise of the Khiljis, the Delhi Sultanate began with the Mamluk dynasty, also called the slave dynasty, which ruled from 1206 to 1290 CE. The word Mamluk means owned or slave in Arabic, and many of the rulers were former military slaves of Turkic origin who rose to power through their abilities. The first ruler, Qutbuddin Aibak, was a slave general of Muhammad Ghori. He laid the foundation of Muslim rule in India and began the construction of the Qutub Minar and the Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque in Delhi. The Khilji dynasty 1290-1320 CE. Ala-ud-Din Khilji 1296-1316 CE. Among the most dynamic rulers of the Delhi Sultanate, Alauddin Khilji adopted aggressive strategies to strengthen central control. His reign was marked by major military conquests and strict administrative reforms. He reinforced Delhi's army and defended the empire against repeated Mongol invasions, military attacks by nomadic tribes from Central Asia, ensuring external security. To curb black marketing and inflation, he introduced strict economic controls, fixing prices, standardizing weights, and regulating markets. In Delhi, wages were fixed and food was rationed to maintain discipline among soldiers and commoners alike. Alauddin's most ambitious move was to expand the Sultanate into the Deccan. He sent his trusted general Malik Kafur on southern expeditions leading to the capture of several prominent cities: Devagiri, Maharashtra; Warangal, Telangana; Madurai, Tamil Nadu; and sacred towns like Chidambaram and Rameswaram, Tamil Nadu. These temple towns were deeply revered and represented vibrant centers of regional faith and architecture. The campaigns brought immense wealth and prestige to Delhi, but holding on to these far-flung regions proved difficult. Though symbolic control was achieved, long-term administration in the south remained weak and inconsistent. Alauddin Khilji assumed the grand title of Sikandar-e-Sani, Second Alexander, reflecting his aspirations to be seen as a world conqueror. Coins minted during his reign also carried this title, reinforcing his imperial image throughout his domain. In addition to his conquests and economic reforms, Alauddin Khilji implemented an effective and secret spy system that reported on nobles, markets, and provincial governors, allowing him to suppress rebellions and control corruption. He imposed strict control over the nobility by banning alcohol and prohibiting private social gatherings to prevent conspiracies. His revenue reforms introduced land measurement for tax collection, which curbed exploitation and boosted state income. He maintained a large standing army with fixed salaries and introduced the Chehra, soldier identification, and Dag, horse branding systems. Architecturally, he contributed to the Qutub complex and built the Alai Darwaza, although not known for artistic patronage. His court included Amir Khusrau, a renowned Persian historian and poet who chronicled his rule. The Tughlaq dynasty, 1320-1414 CE. Muhammad bin Tughlaq, 1325-1351 CE. One of the most controversial and visionary rulers of the Delhi Sultanate, Muhammad bin Tughlaq is remembered for his bold experiments and innovative ideas. His reign included several radical policies, such as the shifting of the capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, also known as Devagiri, present-day Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, in the Deccan, to better control the empire's southern regions. This move, however, led to hardship and discontent, as the entire administration and population were forced to relocate, only to return later due to logistical difficulties and water scarcity in Daulatabad. He also introduced a token currency made of copper and brass, hoping to save on the cost of minting silver and gold. However, the coins were easily counterfeited and lost public trust, leading to economic chaos. Other decisions, such as raising taxes in the fertile Doab region during a famine, further alienated the population. Although he was intellectually gifted and deeply interested in philosophy, medicine, and arts, his poor planning and harsh punishments caused repeated rebellions and unrest. Despite his failures, Muhammad bin Tughlaq remains a significant figure in medieval Indian history for his forward-thinking ideas and the lessons they offered in governance. His reign also saw heightened persecution of non-Muslims who were frequently labelled infidels, and suffered under harsh taxation and discriminatory laws. He was a Turkic Mongol conqueror by lineage and ruled over a culturally diverse empire facing both internal dissent and external threats. Firoz Shah Tughlaq 1351–1388 CE. Firoz Shah is remembered for his emphasis on public welfare and infrastructure. He undertook extensive public works, including the construction of canals for irrigation, rest houses, sarais for travellers, and hospitals for the poor. He established new towns such as Firozabad and promoted urban development. He reduced harsh punishments and attempted to codify laws based on Islamic principles. Firoz Shah also restored old monuments, encouraged the translation of Sanskrit texts into Persian, and promoted education by establishing madrasas, Islamic schools. His reign was marked by relative stability and administrative consolidation following the turbulent policies of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. The Sayyid dynasty 1451–1451 CE. The Sayyid dynasty was the fourth dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate, ruling from 1414 to 1451 CE. It came to power after Timur's invasion of Delhi in 1398 CE, when he appointed Khizr Khan, the governor of Multan, as Delhi's new ruler. Khizr Khan founded the dynasty, but ruled as Timur's representative without taking the title of Sultan. His son Mubarak Shah formally declared himself Sultan and tried to restore authority, but faced constant rebellions. Later, rulers Muhammad Shah and Alauddin Alam Shah were weak and gradually lost control. In 1451 CE, Alam Shah voluntarily abdicated and handed power to Bahlul Lodi, ending Sayyid rule and beginning the Lodi dynasty. The Sayyid period was marked by political instability and limited territorial control, mostly around Delhi. Though weak, the dynasty left some architectural contributions like Mubarak Shah's tomb. It served as a transitional phase between the stronger Tughlaqs and the rising Lodi Empire. The Lodi dynasty 1451–1526 CE. Bahlul Khan Lodi, the founder of the Lodi dynasty, came to power in 1451 CE after the decline of the Sayyid dynasty. He, an Afghan noble, brought a degree of stability to the Delhi Sultanate, which had suffered from political fragmentation. Bahlul successfully extended his control over regions like Jaunpur and re-established central authority. Known for his diplomatic skills and practical leadership, he avoided unnecessary wars and focused on consolidating his rule. His son Sikandar Lodi ruled from 1489 to 1517 CE and is remembered for his administrative and economic reforms. He shifted the capital from Delhi to Agra, transforming it into a thriving urban center. Sikandar Lodi promoted agriculture by encouraging the use of wastelands, improving irrigation, and regulating revenue collection. He also supported the construction of roads and marketplaces, strengthening trade. Though he was a patron of literature and culture, his reign was marked by religious intolerance. Despite their efforts, the Lodi dynasty eventually fell to Babur in 1526 CE, ending the Delhi Sultanate and paving the way for the Mughal Empire. During the Sultanate period, there was also widespread destruction of temples and the imposition of the jizya, a tax levied on non-Muslims to grant them protection and exemption from military service, leading to social and religious tensions with local populations. The term iconoclasm describes the deliberate destruction of religious images and structures, which was a frequent occurrence during this time. Resistance and assertion of regional powers. During the period of the Delhi Sultanate, several regional powers across India actively resisted the expanding influence of the Sultanate and upheld their cultural and political independence. These movements, though scattered geographically, played a crucial role in maintaining regional autonomy and preserving diverse traditions. Eastern Ganga dynasty. The Eastern Gangas of Odisha, especially under Narasimhadeva, launched strong resistance against the encroachment of the Delhi Sultanate. They are especially renowned for commissioning the construction of the Konark Sun Temple, an architectural marvel and a lasting symbol of spiritual and political assertion. This temple not only stood as a devotional site but also as a proud marker of Ganga sovereignty. Musunuri Nayakas. The Musunuri Nayakas, a Telugu warrior family, emerged as powerful local defenders in the Telangana region. After the fall of the Kakatiya dynasty to the Tughlaqs, the Musunuri Nayakas, led by Kapaya Nayaka, successfully ousted the Delhi forces from Warangal and restored local governance. Their victory marked a brief resurgence of Telugu self-rule. Hoysalas. Operating in present-day Karnataka, the Hoysalas fiercely resisted northern campaigns. They were renowned for their contributions to temple architecture, particularly the intricately carved temples at Belur and Halebeedu. Despite sustained resistance, they were eventually overshadowed by the rise of the Vijayanagara Empire. Rajputs. Rajput kingdoms in Rajasthan and central India consistently defied Delhi's rule. Leaders like Rana Kumbha of Mewar not only defended their realms militarily but also became patrons of temple architecture and learning. Rana Kumbha was known for building the Vijay Stambha, Victory Tower, at Chittorgarh to commemorate his triumphs. Bahmani. Bahmani Sultanate 1347 1527 CE, founded in the Deccan region. After revolting against the Delhi Sultanate, the Bahmani Sultanate emerged as a powerful independent kingdom with its capital initially at Gulbarga and later at Bidar. It played a significant role in resisting northern dominance and contributed to the distinct culture and architecture of the Deccan. These acts of resistance were not merely military efforts but also expressions of cultural pride. Their defiance laid the groundwork for the emergence of powerful regional empires such as Vijayanagara and eventually contributed to the shaping of India's pluralistic traditions and decentralized power structures in the medieval period. Did you know? 1. The name Hoysalas is believed to come from a legendary tale where an ancestor of the dynasty bravely killed a tiger to save his guru. As the story goes, someone shouted, "Hoi Salah," which means strike Salah, Salah being the name of the warrior. This phrase later became the name of the ruling family. 2. The Kumbhalgarh fort, built by Rana Kumbha in the 15th century in Rajasthan, has walls so massive that they are second only to the Great Wall of China. It served as a safe refuge for the rulers of Mewar in times of conflict and even sheltered the infant Uday Singh II, founder of Udaipur. The Vijayanagara Empire. Emerging as a powerful southern kingdom in medieval India, the Vijayanagara Empire was founded in 1336 CE by Harihara Pefre and Bukkaraya Pefre, also known as the Sangama brothers. They had earlier served under the Kakatiya and Kampili kingdoms, and their decision to establish a new kingdom was a strategic response to the increasing threat of invasions from the north, especially by the Delhi Sultanate. The new capital, Vijayanagar, meaning City of Victory, was located on the banks of the Tungabhadra River and symbolized Hindu resurgence and cultural assertion in peninsular India. It served as a major political and military bulwark against Islamic expansion in the south. The empire's rise coincided with the emergence of the Bahmani Sultanate, which had broken away from the Delhi Sultanate, based first in Gulbarga and later in Bidar. The Bahmani Sultanate and its successor states Bijapur, Golconda, Ahmednagar, Berar, and Bidar became constant and powerful rivals of Vijayanagar. These Deccan sultanates frequently clashed with Vijayanagar in a bid to control the region's wealth and strategic locations. To counter these threats, the Vijayanagar rulers developed a strong military system and built fortified cities. They actively promoted both inland and overseas trade through their eastern and western ports, encouraged local crafts, and attracted foreign merchants and travelers. One of their most enduring legacies is temple architecture. The empire's capital, Hampi, became an artistic and spiritual hub. The sacred Virupaksha temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva, stood at the heart of the city and was a site of continuous worship and architectural development. Krishnadev Rai. The golden era of the Vijayanagar Empire reached its zenith under Krishnadevaraya 1509-1529 CE, the most celebrated and powerful ruler of the dynasty. A valiant military commander and far-sighted administrator, he expanded the empire to its widest extent and ushered in an age of cultural brilliance and economic growth. His reign witnessed flourishing trade, internal stability, and thriving artistic expression. Krishnadevaraya was a generous patron of scholars and poets across multiple languages: Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, and Sanskrit. Among the luminaries at his court was the witty poet Tenali Ramakrishna. He personally authored the Telugu classic Amukta-Malyada, a profound poetic work that also discussed Rajaniti royal policy. The emperor was a devout follower of Andal and promoted Vaishnavism while respecting other faiths as well. He commissioned the iconic Vithala temple, renowned for its musical stone pillars and intricately carved chariot. The sacred Virupaksha temple at Hampi was also restored and expanded during his rule, reflecting his commitment to religion and architecture. Krishna Dev Rai passed away in 1529 CE due to illness, marking the end of the most dynamic phase of the empire's history. His legacy lived on as a model of ideal kingship and cultural patronage in South India. The Vijayanagar Empire was noted for its well-organized administration, large standing army, and support for trade and agriculture. However, it faced constant hostility from the Deccan Sultanates. In 1565 CE, at the Battle of Talikota, a combined force of Bijapur, Golconda, Ahmednagar, Berar and Bidar defeated the Vijayanagar army. The capital, Hampi, was ransacked and destroyed, signaling the beginning of the empire's decline. Despite its fall, the cultural and architectural legacy of Vijayanagar continues to shine. The ruins of Hampi, especially the Virupaksha temple, remain a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a testament to South India's medieval glory. Did you know? The name Vijayanagar means City of Victory. Its capital, Hampi, was not only a political center but also one of the richest and most admired cities of its time. European travelers like Domingo Paez were amazed by its bustling markets, palatial buildings, and majestic temples. In his account, Paez describes Hampi as a city that had everything that could be desired, from jewel-laden merchants to a thriving economy. He noted the grand processions, ornate rituals at the Virupaksha temple, and the remarkable cleanliness and order of the city streets. Find out, why did Domingo Paez call Hampi one of the most beautiful cities he had ever seen? Also, write an excerpt from his account describing the city. How did Hampi's layout reflect both economic and religious priorities of the Vijayanagar Empire? The Mughals. The Mughals ruled a vast empire in India from the early 16th to the mid-19th century. Their reign left a lasting imprint on Indian culture, art, architecture, and administration. Below is a detailed account of the major Mughal emperors, followed by a glimpse into their successors, trade contributions, and political decline. The rise of the Mughal Empire in the 16th century marked a new chapter in India's medieval history. Babur 1526-1530. Babur, a Turkic Mongol conqueror and descendant of both Timur and Genghis Khan, invaded India and defeated the last Delhi Sultan, Ibrahim Lodi, in the First Battle of Panipat in 1526 CE. This victory was notable for the use of advanced gunpowder technology, including the strategic deployment of cannons and field artillery, which gave Babur's smaller army a decisive edge. The terrifying noise and destructive power of cannons played a crucial role in breaking the enemy's ranks and morale. Following this historic victory, Babur assumed control of the Delhi throne and established the Mughal Empire in northern India. He ruled until his death in 1530 CE due to illness, laying the foundation for one of India's most influential dynasties. Babur's memoirs, the Baburnama, offer deep insights into his personality, reflecting both a love for nature and culture and a ruthless attitude towards war and conquest. Humayun 1531 1,540, 1,555, 1,556. As the second Mughal emperor, Humayun inherited an empire still struggling to establish stability. He faced stiff resistance from Afghan nobles and Rajput chieftains. His most powerful rival was Sher Shah Suri, founder of the Sur dynasty, who had earlier served under Afghan rulers. Sher Shah defeated Humayun in the Battle of Chausa 1539 and again at Kanauj 1540, leading to Humayun's long exile. During this time, Sher Shah implemented extensive administrative and revenue reforms, laying the foundation of a strong Sur empire. Among the key figures during this period was Himu, a skilled military commander and wazir under the Suri rulers. Himu rose from humble beginnings, held the position of chief minister under Adil Shah Suri, and led several victorious campaigns across northern India to restore Suri control. In 1556, he even declared himself independent and took on the title Hemchandra Vikramaditya, drawing inspiration from ancient Indian traditions. He briefly ruled from Delhi after defeating Mughal forces at Agra and Delhi before facing Akbar's army in the Second Battle of Panipat later that year. For nearly 15 years, Humayun wandered in search of allies, eventually securing Persian military assistance. In 1555, he returned to India and managed to reclaim Delhi. However, tragedy struck soon after. He died in 1556 following a fall from his library steps. Despite these challenges, Humayun ensured the continuity of the Mughal Empire, paving the way for his son Akbar's remarkable reign. Akbar 1556 1605. At the age of just 13, Akbar ascended the Mughal throne after his father Humayun's sudden death. Initially guided by his regent Bairam Khan, Akbar soon displayed remarkable leadership and military acumen. His early reign was marked by the critical Second Battle of Panipat 1556, in which his forces defeated Hemu, restoring Mughal authority in northern India. Akbar ruled for nearly 50 years, from 1556 to 1605, during which the Mughal Empire expanded considerably. The first 15 years of his reign were devoted to consolidating his military power. He launched successful campaigns in Malwa, Gujarat, Bengal, Kashmir, Sindh, Deccan, and Afghanistan, turning the Mughal Empire into a vast and diverse kingdom. Regarded as one of the greatest rulers of India, Akbar combined military expansion with diplomatic alliances and religious tolerance. He abolished the jizya tax on non-Muslims, propagated the policy of Sulh-e-Kul, universal peace, and held regular debates among scholars of various faiths. His court became a hub of intellectual and cultural activity, attracting scholars, poets, historians, and artists from across India and Central Asia. He introduced Din-e-Ilahi, meaning religion of God, a syncretic religion intended to merge the core values of major faiths, though it had few followers. Akbar also commissioned the translation of Sanskrit texts such as the Mahabharata as Razmnama into Persian, facilitating cultural exchange. He also patronized a richly illustrated Persian Ramayana, which included 176 miniature paintings, showcasing the Mughal interest in Hindu epics. A great builder, Akbar constructed the splendid city of Fatehpur Sikri, which served as the imperial capital for more than a decade. The city featured architectural marvels like the Buland Darwaza, Jama Masjid, and the Ibadat Khana, house of worship, where philosophical and religious debates were encouraged. The imperial complex also included the Panch Mahal, a 5-story structure used for leisure and meetings. Administratively, Akbar introduced the Mansabdari system to organize the military and civil services based on rank and merit. His finance minister, Raja Todar Mal, devised a revenue system rooted in land measurement and productivity assessment, increasing efficiency and reducing corruption. Akbar also gained the support of many Rajput rulers through matrimonial alliances and respect for their autonomy, helping him strengthen his rule across India. He also authored Amukta-Malyada, a treatise on Rajaniti, royal policy influenced by Andal traditions. Akbar's inclusive policies, strong central administration, and promotion of art and culture helped transform the Mughal Empire into a powerful and culturally vibrant realm. He died in 1605 due to illness, and his reign is often viewed as the golden era of the Mughal dynasty. Jahangir 1600 and 1627. Jahangir, who succeeded Akbar, ruled until 1627. He continued his father's legacy of fostering religious tolerance and promoting art and culture. Jahangir is particularly remembered for his love of nature, justice, and fine arts. His court saw the flourishing of Mughal miniature painting, reaching new levels of detail and naturalism. He was also a connoisseur of Persian calligraphy and encouraged painters and writers. Jahangir maintained diplomatic relations with European powers, including the English and the Portuguese. Notably, the construction of Humayun's tomb, which began under Akbar and was completed in Jahangir's time, served as a major architectural inspiration for later Mughal monuments. He died in 1627 CE. Shah Jahan 1628-1658. Shah Jahan, Akbar's grandson, is best known for ushering in the golden age of Mughal architecture. His reign marked the peak of artistic and architectural achievements of the empire. The most iconic of his constructions is the Taj Mahal, built in memory of his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal. Apart from the Taj Mahal, he also commissioned Red Fort in Delhi, Jama Masjid, and the imperial city of Shah Jahanabad, the seventh city of Delhi. His court was famous for its refined culture, exquisite jewelry, textiles, calligraphy, and artistic patronage. He actively supported the production of miniature paintings, further enriching the Mughal artistic legacy. Shah Jahan's reign witnessed economic prosperity and a high point in imperial grandeur. However, later in life, illness weakened his rule, leading to a war of succession among his sons. Eventually, he was overthrown and imprisoned by his son Aurangzeb in Agra Fort, where he spent the last years of his life gazing at the Taj Mahal. He died in 1666. Dara Shikoh. Dara Shikoh, the eldest son of Shah Jahan, was a learned scholar and a devoted patron of interfaith dialogue. He is best known for translating several Sanskrit scriptures, including the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, into Persian, believing that they shared deep philosophical connections with Islamic Sufi thought. Dara promoted syncretic ideas and sought to bridge Hindu and Muslim traditions. Unfortunately, his liberal ideas and claim to the throne led to a bitter war of succession with his younger brother Aurangzeb, who ultimately had executed him in 1659. Dara Shikoh's legacy lives on through his writings and translations, which were among the earliest attempts to foster mutual understanding between the subcontinent's major religions. Aurangzeb 1658-1707. Aurangzeb, the sixth Mughal emperor, expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent through long and determined military campaigns. He personally led expeditions in the Deccan region, subduing Bijapur, Golconda, and parts of Tamil Nadu, and extending Mughal rule deep into southern India. His reign lasted for nearly 5 decades and saw the Mughal Empire reach its zenith in terms of land area. He was a disciplined administrator and known for his personal austerity. Aurangzeb constructed notable architectural monuments, including the Badshahi Mosque in Lahore and the Moti Masjid in Delhi. His court also witnessed the continuation of Islamic scholarship, and he ensured the compilation of Fatawa-e-Alamgiri, a comprehensive digest of Islamic law. Aurangzeb's campaigns in the Deccan lasted nearly 25 years. Despite the strain of continuous warfare, he ensured revenue administration and governance remained strong. He passed away in 1707 CE due to natural illness. Later, Mughals and decline. After Aurangzeb's death, the Mughal Empire began to weaken. Successive rulers like Bahadur Shah I, Farrukhsiyar, and Muhammad Shah Rangila struggled to maintain control. Provinces asserted independence, and regional powers such as the Marathas, Sikhs, and Rajputs rose in prominence. The final Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, played a symbolic role during the revolt of 1857. After its failure, he was deposed by the British, marking the official end of the Mughal Empire. Mughal trade and economy. Under Mughal rule, India became a key player in global trade. Port cities like Surat, Cambay, Masulipatam, and Hooghly flourished. The empire exported textiles, cotton, silk, indigo, spices, and precious stones to West Asia and Europe. Trade brought wealth and also attracted European traders such as the Portuguese, Dutch, English, and French. Timeline of major Mughal rulers. Emperor, reign. Cause of death. Babur 1526 1530. Illness. Humayun 1530 1540 1555 1556. Fell from library steps. Akbar 1550. 6. 1605. Illness. Jahangir 1605. 1627. Natural causes. Shah Jahan 1628. 1658. Natural causes, imprisoned until death. Aurangzeb 1658. 1707. Illness. This timeline shows the major emperors and how their reigns transitioned, shaping the political and cultural fabric of India for over 3 centuries. Did you know? Timur, Babur's ancestor and founder of the Timurid Empire, a Turkic Mongol warlord from Central Asia, invaded India in 1398. He ruthlessly plundered Delhi, massacred thousands of infidels, and left the city in ruins. His invasion weakened the Delhi Sultanate, indirectly paving the way for Babur's conquest over a century later. Resistance to the Mughals. While the Mughal Empire brought administrative efficiency and architectural splendor to India, it was also met with persistent resistance from various communities, kingdoms, and regions. These challenges often shaped Mughal policies and limited the extent of their power, especially in difficult terrains or culturally distinct regions. Peasant and tribal resistance. Popular resistance among peasants and tribal communities often took the form of uprisings against harsh taxation or political interference. In central India, Rani Durgavati of the Gond kingdom led one of the fiercest resistances. A skilled archer and military commander, she courageously opposed Mughal forces under General Asaf Khan during Akbar's reign. With an army of around 20,000 men, she defended her kingdom valiantly but chose martyrdom over surrender in 1564 CE, becoming a powerful symbol of tribal pride and resistance. Tribal groups such as the Bhils in western India, Santhals, and other forest-dwelling communities frequently resisted Mughal expansion into their territories. These groups used guerrilla tactics and their deep knowledge of terrain to disrupt imperial campaigns. The Jat peasantry in eastern Rajasthan, western Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana rose up against oppressive tax policies. Leaders like Gokula and later Raja Suraj Mal turned peasant discontent into military strength. They challenged Mughal authority and later established an independent kingdom in Bharatpur. Additionally, the Satnamis of Haryana, a socially marginalized group of artisans and farmers, launched a strong rebellion in 1672 CE. Their demands for social equality and independence from imperial control reflected the rising unrest among the lower classes during Aurangzeb's reign. Rajput resistance. The Rajputs, renowned for their unwavering valor and honor, played a dual role in the Mughal era. Some allied with the empire, while others resisted its control with fierce determination. One of the earliest and most powerful resistors was Rana Sanga of Mewar, who led a formidable Rajput confederacy against Babur in the Battle of Khanwa, 1527 CE. Although he was defeated, Rana Sanga's efforts marked the beginning of a long tradition of Rajput defiance against imperial domination. A century later, Maharana Pratap from the Sisodia dynasty became the face of resistance against Akbar. He refused to accept Mughal sovereignty and fought in the famous Battle of Haldi Ghati 1576 CE against Mughal forces led by Man Singh of Amber. Though outnumbered, Pratap's army, with critical support from the Bhils, a tribal community deeply familiar with the rugged terrain, mounted a fierce resistance. After the battle, Maharana Pratap adopted guerrilla tactics from the Aravalli hills, regaining much of his lost territory except Chittorgarh. His alliance with the Bhils was so important that the emblem of Mewar features a Bhil warrior and a Rajput warrior, symbolizing their shared legacy. After Maharana Pratap's death, his son Maharana Amar Singh took up the mantle of resistance, but later signed a peace treaty with Jahangir in 1615 CE, marking a compromise that allowed Mewar to retain its dignity without surrendering royal women or. In Marwar, Durga Das Rathore emerged as a heroic figure during Aurangzeb's reign. After the death of Raja Jaswant Singh in 1678 CE, Aurangzeb's attempts to annex Marwar led Durga Das to rally local forces to protect the young prince Ajit Singh. He conducted a prolonged guerrilla war and became a symbol of Rajput resilience and honor. Resistance was not limited to Mewar and Marwar. In Bundelkhand, local Rajput leaders like Chhatrasal Bundela rose against Mughal control. His rebellion highlighted the growing dissatisfaction among local rulers with the empire's centralized authority and religious orthodoxy. The legacy of Rajput resistance, symbolized by figures like Rana Sanga, Maharana Pratap, and Durga Das, represents a fierce defense of autonomy and culture. These acts of defiance significantly influenced the weakening of Mughal authority in later years. You will explore the stories of these Rajput warriors in greater detail in Chapter Ahom Resistance in Assam. The Ahom kingdom, founded in the 13th century 1228 CE by a Thai prince named Sukafa, emerged as one of the strongest powers in northeastern India. Originally migrating from present-day Myanmar, the Ahoms established their capital at Gargaon in the Brahmaputra Valley of present-day Assam. Over the centuries, they developed a centralized and efficient administration with deep local roots. One of the keys to the Ahoms' strength was their unique pike system, a form of rotational, compulsory labor and militia organization. Every adult male was enrolled as a pike and assigned to serve in either military or public service roles. This ensured a constant supply of trained men for defense and infrastructure without needing a permanent standing army. The Mughal Empire launched several campaigns to expand into Assam during the 17th century, aiming to control its strategic trade routes and natural wealth. The most significant confrontation took place in the Battle of Saraighat in 1671 CE. Mughal forces, led by Ram Singh I of Amber, advanced to capture Guwahati by navigating through the Brahmaputra River, the lifeline of Assam. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Ahoms, under the command of the brave general Lachit Borphukan, mounted a fierce defense. With around 10,000 Ahom warriors, they defeated a much larger Mughal force of over 30,000 soldiers through clever tactics, ambushes, and expert use of river-based warfare. Lachit's leadership and personal courage turned the tide even as he fought while gravely ill. The battle, fought on the waters of the Brahmaputra near present-day Guwahati, ended in a decisive Mughal retreat. The Ahoms successfully defended their territory and preserved their independence for many more decades. Today, the Battle of Saraighat is remembered as a symbol of Assamese pride, strategic brilliance, and patriotic resistance. The heroic legacy of Lachit Borphukan is celebrated every year on Lachit Divas, and his contributions are honored across India, especially in military institutions. Did you know? Ram Singh, the general of the Mughal army, praised the Ahom warriors for their extraordinary versatility. He remarked, "Every Assamese soldier is expert in rowing boats, in shooting arrows, in digging trenches, and in wielding guns and cannons. I have not seen such specimens of versatility in any other part of India." This statement highlights the remarkable skills of the Ahom forces, who mastered both traditional warfare techniques and modern weaponry to defend their homeland effectively. Sikh resistance. The Sikh community evolved from a peaceful spiritual movement into a powerful military and political force to protect their identity, beliefs, and the rights of others to practice their faith freely. Sikhism was founded in the 15th century by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who preached devotion to one formless God, along with values of equality, compassion, truth, and social justice. He opposed discrimination based on caste and ritualism. His teachings laid the foundation for a community built on dignity and harmony. Over 2 centuries, 10 gurus expanded and it strengthened the Sikh tradition. A turning point came under the 5th Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, who compiled the Adi Granth, the holy scripture of Sikhism, and initiated the construction of the Harmandir Sahib Golden Temple at Amritsar. This sacred shrine symbolized openness and unity. Guru Arjan Dev Ji's martyrdom in 1606 CE inspired the Sikh community to stand firm in their spiritual and social ideals, leading to the development of a martial identity. His son, Guru Hargobind Ji, the 6th Guru, introduced the dual concepts of Miri, temporal authority, and Piri, spiritual authority, symbolized by 2 swords. He also established the Akal Takht, throne of the timeless, as a center of justice and community affairs. Guru Hargobind Ji guided the community with strength and vision, ensuring its right to self-determination. The 9th Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, became a beacon of courage when he upheld the right to religious freedom for all. He sacrificed his life in 1675 CE in Chandni Chowk and is honored with the title Hindi Chadar, Protector of India, symbolizing his defense of the nation's diverse faiths. The 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, transformed the community into a well-organized and disciplined spiritual army. In 1699 CE, he founded the Khalsa Panth at Anandpur Sahib, giving the Sikhs a unique identity marked by the 5 Ks: Kakar, Kesh, Kanga, Kara, Kachra and Kirpan. His life was one of deep sacrifice and leadership. He inspired the community with courage and faith, and before passing away in 1708 CE, he declared the Guru Granth Sahib as the eternal Guru of the Sikhs. After his time, the movement was carried forward by Banda Singh Bahadur, a devoted disciple of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Banda led successful campaigns in Punjab, introduced land reforms like the abolition of the zamindari system, and briefly established Sikh rule in parts of northern India. His leadership left a lasting legacy of justice and equality. In the 18th century, the Sikh community organized itself into misls, autonomous military confederacies that played a vital role in protecting Punjab. Eventually, these were united under Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who founded the Sikh Empire in the early 19th century, with Lahore as its capital. His reign was marked by secular rule, a modernized army, and a deep appreciation for art, architecture, and inclusive governance. The Sikh resistance is remembered for its unwavering commitment to justice, courage in the face of adversity, and dedication to preserving the spiritual and cultural values of India. Did you know? Gurdwara Sisganj Sahib, located in Chandni Chowk, Delhi, is an important place of worship in Sikhism. It marks the sacred site associated with Guru Tegh Bahadur, the 9th Sikh Guru, who is remembered for his unwavering faith and spiritual courage. Since 1979, this historic Gurdwara has been honoured by the Sikh Regiment, which pays tribute to it during the Republic Day Parade every year before the President of India. The Gurdwara continues to inspire countless people as a symbol of devotion, sacrifice, and unity in India's diverse spiritual heritage. Administration: Delhi Sultanate and Mughal Empire. The administrative systems of medieval India evolved significantly from the Delhi Sultanate to the Mughal Empire. Each introduced innovative methods to manage their vast territories and diverse populations with greater efficiency and central control. Delhi Sultanate, the Iqta system. During the period of the Delhi Sultanate, a key administrative innovation was the Iqta system. Under this arrangement, the empire was divided into various land grants called Iqtas, which were assigned to nobles and military officers, known as Iqtadars. These officials were entrusted with the following responsibilities. 1. Collection of land revenue from the areas assigned to them by the Sultanate. 2. Maintenance of law and order within their respective territories. 3. Payment of a portion of revenue to the Sultan's treasury, signifying loyalty and financial contribution. 4. Upkeep of troops who could be summoned to serve in the Sultan's central army when required. Importantly, Iqtadars did not own the land. Their assignments were non-hereditary and transferable, ensuring that no noble or officer could build a local power base strong enough to challenge the central authority. However, in practice, the system occasionally led to corruption, overtaxation, and rebellion due to misuse of power. Mughal Empire, Mansabdari and revenue systems. With the emergence of the Mughal Empire, especially under Emperor Akbar, the administration was centralized and refined. The Mughal system combined military efficiency with bureaucratic regulation, with a deep emphasis on record keeping and standardization. Mansabdari system. Akbar introduced the Mansabdari system, a military-cum-civil ranking system that helped organize his vast empire efficiently. The term Mansab means rank, and each Mansabdar was assigned a numerical rank that determined 1. Their status and position in the imperial court. 2. The number of cavalrymen they were required to maintain, specified under 2 ranks: Zat, personal status, and Savar troop obligations. 3. Their salary and assignment of Jagir, revenue-yielding land, in return for services rendered. This system created a hierarchical and merit-based bureaucracy. Appointments and promotions were controlled by the emperor, and ranks could be increased, reduced, or transferred as per performance and loyalty. The Mughal administration was supported by detailed record-keeping through an organized bureaucracy of clerks and scribes, munshis, who maintained all administrative data including land, income, troop strength, and promotions. Key officers in the Mughal administration. In addition to Mansabdars, Akbar's administration included several important officials, each with specialized duties. Mir Bakshi, head of the military department, he maintained records of all Mansabdars and their horses through the Dag and Chehra system and verified troop strength. Khan-e-Saman, in charge of the imperial household and royal supply departments, managing the emperor's wardrobe, arsenal, and transport. Sadrus, responsible for religious and charitable affairs, including education, appointment of judges, qazis, and disbursement of grants to scholars and religious leaders. Qazi-ul-Quzat, Chief Justice of the Empire, who oversaw judicial matters in civil and criminal courts. Provinces, Subas, and their administration. Under Akbar, the empire was divided into large provinces called Subas. Initially, there were 12 Subas, but this number was later expanded to 15 by the end of Akbar's reign. The administration of Subas was documented in the Ain-e-Akbari by Abul Fazl. Each Subah was governed by a Subadar and supported by other officers. Diwan handled revenue and finance. Bakshi oversaw military matters. Qazi managed judicial affairs. Kotwal maintained law and order in towns. This ensured proper division of powers and efficient governance at the provincial level. Revenue reforms by Raja Todar Mal. Raja Todar Mal, Akbar's finance minister, introduced a comprehensive revenue policy known as the Dasala system, which standardized revenue collection. Its major features included 1. Land measurement using scientific survey tools like the bamboo jarib for accurate assessment. 2. Soil classification into different categories, that is to say, good, average, and poor, based on fertility. 3. 10-year average of produce and prices to fix a stable revenue rate. 4. Cash payments, encouraging peasants to engage in monetized trade instead of barter. This policy improved agricultural output, minimized exploitation, and generated surplus revenue to fund public works, military, and monumental architecture. Jagir system and Jagirdars. Under the Mughals, especially during Akbar's time, Jagirs, land revenue assignments, were given to Mansabdars as part of their salary. These officers were known as Jagirdars. Their responsibilities included 1. Collecting revenue from their assigned Jagirs. 2. Ensuring proper administration of the region. 3. Supporting their troop quotas as per their Mansab rank. Jagirs were non-hereditary and frequently transferred to prevent local power consolidation and to ensure continued loyalty to the emperor. Both the Delhi Sultanate's Ikta system and the Mughal Mansabdari Jagir system served as foundational pillars of medieval Indian governance. While the Sultanate focused on decentralized tax farming through iqtidars, the Mughals developed a centralized, record-based and highly regulated bureaucracy. Their well-defined military, revenue and judicial structures left a lasting legacy on Indian administration. Daily life and economy in medieval India. Medieval India witnessed significant developments in its economic and social life. Despite frequent wars and political upheavals, the subcontinent remained economically vibrant and culturally rich. The everyday life of people revolved around agriculture, trade, artisanal work, and religious and community institutions. Agricultural foundation. Agriculture was the backbone of the medieval Indian economy. A majority of the population lived in villages and was engaged in farming activities. Farmers grew a variety of crops depending on the region, including food crops like rice, wheat, barley, and millets. Cash crops like sugarcane, cotton, and indigo in fertile regions. Irrigation systems such as wells using Persian wheels, tanks, and canals were developed or improved under various rulers. In southern India, Kudimaramat, community maintenance and tank irrigation played a vital role. Revenue was primarily collected in the form of cash or kind. Silver rupaya coins and copper dams were used as standard currency during the Mughal period, supporting monetized transactions in rural and urban markets. Crafts and artisanal production. Artisanal activities flourished in towns and trade centers. Craftspeople worked in family units or organized groups known as Shrenis guilds. Each jati, caste or community group often specialized in a particular craft, such as weavers, blacksmiths or potters, passing down skills across generations. Indian artisans produced cotton and silk textiles dyed in natural colors, gold and silver jewelry and ornaments, items of daily use like tools, pottery, carpets, and wooden furniture, construction materials, dyes, and decorative temple carvings. Major urban centers like Surat, Masulipattnam, and Hooghly were famous for their textiles and craft exports. Trade and commerce. Medieval India had a flourishing internal and external trade network. Cities and towns were linked by caravan routes and river transport. Key features of trade included local markets, haids and mandis, where farmers and artisans sold their goods. Long-distance trade connecting coastal towns to West Asia, Africa and Southeast Asia. Indian merchants traded textiles, spices, precious stones, horses and perfumes. Ports like Cambay, Calicut and Pulicat were hubs of maritime trade. To support long-distance trade, financial innovations like the Hundi system, a form of credit note or bill of exchange, were developed. This allowed merchants to transfer large sums without physically carrying cash, reducing the risk of theft. Role of temples and religious centers. Temples, mosques and monasteries were not only spiritual centers but also played a major economic and social role. Temples owned large tracts of land and collected revenue. They served as banks, granaries and centers of charity. Temples employed a wide range of people such as priests, dancers, musicians, builders, cooks and gardeners. They attracted pilgrims, boosting local trade and commerce. Case study: the prosperity of Vijayanagar. The city of Vijayanagar, founded in the 14th century, became one of the richest and most magnificent cities of medieval India, located on the banks of the Tungabhadra river. It was the capital of the powerful Vijayanagar Empire. The city was well planned with fortifications, temples, markets and water tanks. Markets were filled with imported horses, jewels, silks and spices. The state supported trade and maintained roads and rest houses for travelers. The economy benefited from temple wealth and donations by kings and merchants. The Portuguese traveller Domingo Paes, who visited in the early 16th century, described Vijayanagar as a rich, bustling and grand city, larger and more splendid than many European cities of the time. Chapter Summary. The period from the 11th to 17th centuries in India is known as the medieval period, marked by major political, cultural and economic changes. The early 11th century saw powerful regional kingdoms such as the Cholas in the south and Rajputs in the north, before invasions from Central Asia began. Mahmud of Ghazni and Muhammad Khori led invasions that weakened Indian kingdoms and set the stage for foreign rule. The Delhi Sultanate, 1226 CE, was established by Qutbuddin Aibak after Ghori's conquest. It included 5 dynasties: Mamluks, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids and Lodis. Alauddin Khilji expanded the Sultanate southwards and introduced economic reforms and military control systems. Muhammad bin Tughlaq implemented bold policies like shifting the capital to Daulatabad and issuing token currency, which led to instability. Firoz Shah Tughlaq focused on welfare works and built infrastructure such as canals and hospitals. The Sultanate faced resistance from regional powers like the Hoysalas, Eastern Gangas, Kakatiyas, Rajputs and Musunuri Nayakas. The Vijayanagar Empire emerged in the south as a major Hindu power and resisted Islamic expansion. Its capital, Hampi, became a center of art, trade and architecture. Krishnadev Rai, the most celebrated ruler of Vijayanagar, promoted literature, temple building and strong administration. The Mughal Empire was founded by Babur after defeating Ibrahim Lodi in the First Battle of Panipat, 1526 CE. Akbar expanded the empire, introduced religious tolerance, Sulh-e-Kul, the Mansabdari system and revenue reforms through Raja Todar Mal. Later, Mughal rulers like Jahangir and Shah Jahan promoted art and architecture. Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal, Red Fort and Jama Masjid. Aurangzeb expanded the empire to its largest size but faced increasing resistance and unrest. Mughal decline began after Aurangzeb's death in 1707 CE with regional powers asserting independence. Resistance movements emerged from various regions. Rajputs, Maharana Pratap, Durgadas fought for autonomy. Ahoms in Assam defeated the Mughals in the Battle of Saraikhat. Sikhs under their gurus and later Banda Singh Bahadur resisted religious oppression and founded the Khalsa. Peasant groups like the Jats, Bhils and Satnamis protested against high taxes and injustice. India's economy remained vibrant through agriculture, rice, wheat, pulses, sugarcane, cotton, craft production and gilts shrines. Local and overseas trade supported by the Hundi credit system. Flourishing temple towns, ports like Surat and industries like textiles, dyes and jewellery. Religious institutions like temples and mosques served as economic hubs, managing land, charity and employment. The period laid the foundation for India's regional identities, administrative systems and rich cultural